What's up guys, Channel Rebels Off-Road. I'm going to be unboxing and giving a review on our new tie rod and tie rod ends for our Brute Force. Got the package right here and we're going to get right into it. But first, go smash that like button and subscribe for more great content.
So these are the Brute Performance, Brute Force tie rod and tie rod ends.
They retail for about $200 and I know that's kind of expensive, but we will get into if they're worth it later in this video, so stay tuned.
We are going to open this up and check them out. Really excited about these. They are billet aluminum. I believe they're 6061. Got some bubble wrap in here. Looks like. Can't wait to get inside.
That's what he said, right, guys? Because of.
All right, some bubble wrap. Got our packing slip. Heck yeah. Sweet Brute Performance sticker right out of the box. Brute Performance sticker.
Nice.
All right, and it's in this box. So throw that down. Now, let's see. It's like mail bag pouches. Gonna open them up. Okay, so got our ends here. Nice.
Nice.
Got our hardware clearly marked. This is the steering stem side. Little offset spacers. I believe this is metric and it is the 10.9 grade. This is the wheel side. All right, clearly marked. Nothing else in there. This is the rods. This has got to be the actual rods themselves. Ooh, that looks sick. So check this out.
We interrupt this program to bring you a special report.
Butterfingers. Billet aluminum rods. I don't know if you can see down there. This is actually solid and it's machined out and tapped there for your threads of your tie rod ends. So that is sick. Nice and lightweight, but this will be really, really strong and shouldn't bend at all. Or if it does, it should just bounce right back. Nice.
Nice. Nice.
We're gonna go ahead and thread on these ends onto the tie rods and get them installed on the bike for a full review.
See, it's got this little marking on it so you can tell the difference. So this is the reverse threaded side, and so both the reverse threaded heims will just go on in the opposite direction you would normally screw, like your typical nut and bolt.
The nice part about this is that you have one that's right-handed threaded and one that's left-handed threaded, is that you can actually adjust the alignment without having to take off the tie rod. And then once you have the alignment adjusted properly, you can just tighten up those jam nuts and it'll stay in place.
We're just gonna get it started and we'll do our alignment once it's on the vehicle, so we won't be tightening up these jam nuts just yet. What I've heard about these are that they do not loosen up like the American Star tie rod ends did.
Another nice thing about these are even if the bolt does loosen up, the threads aren't going to get damaged because it's a hardened bolt. And if it does loosen up, we even have the option of going to perhaps an ultra fine threaded bolt, which would go even further to prevent the loosening up of this nut. So we have options. We can even carry a spare bolt and nut in our gear. It's much easier than carrying a spare tie rod end, at least I think. Okay, so I'm gonna show you how the hardware goes. On the tire side, you have this heim spacer, another heim spacer, and then an actual, I'm gonna call it a steering spacer. And they came assembled like this. I'm actually going to take it all off and I'm going to show you how it's going to go in the actual setup. So you can have your bolt facing down like this with the nut under the knuckle. So first you're going to have your heim spacer. It's going to go like that. Then you are going to have your tie rod and that spacer fits down into the heims joint. Then you're going to have your second heims joint spacer. And then finally you're gonna have your little steering spacer, and the tapered end is going to go up. And then after the steering spacer, you're gonna install it with the knuckle here. And then finally, your flange nut will go on the bottom of the knuckle to tie it all in. Okay, so on the other side, very similar. This is gonna be for the steering stem side. You have your bolt, your two Heims spacers, and then you have your flange nut. And the flange nut is also going to be facing down on this one. The only difference is on your steering stem, you are going to have that be on the top. So your two Heims joint spacers here and here. Your steering stem bracket is gonna go right here, and then you're gonna put your flange bolt down on top of it and secure it on the bottom here like that. So we're gonna go put it on the machine, and I'm gonna show you exactly what it looks like.
A few moments later.
All right, so we got the tie rod on. It's all loose, but I wanted to show you installed what it looks like. Have the nut down here, spacer, Heim joint spacer, Heim joint, another Heim joint spacer, and then the bolt. I have the jam nut here. It's just loosely installed. And then on the inside here as well, have the jam nut installed, have the bolt up here, Heim joint spacer, Heim joint spacer, and the nut there. As well as the other side, you can see same thing. We're gonna go ahead and put some Loctite on the threads down here, and then as well as over there. These are lock bolts. They're the type that have that interference fit on the threads as opposed to like a nylock nut, but we're gonna go ahead and add some Loctite to them just to be safe. Now, as far as tools go, the only thing you need to install these tie rod ends and tie rods are actually a 15mm socket and a 15mm box wrench. Now, of course, you're gonna have to remove your old tie rod ends, and that, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, is a 17mm. And also, you probably want a pair of pliers to remove the cotter pin from the castle nut. So I got the Loctited in, little dab of red Loctite up on the bolts here and up in there as well. So I'm just doing this out of an abundance of caution. Those American Star tie rod ends loosened up over time and just became an unsafe condition. So gets all loosey-goosey. On these, I don't think we're gonna have that issue because this is a locking nut here with that red Loctite. That is a permanent Loctite. I just don't want to take any risk at all with these coming apart. So we use that Loctite. I'm gonna go ahead, put the tires back on, do an alignment, and we will see how much this tightened up. So we're gonna move the handlebar and we're gonna see how much it takes before the wheel starts to turn. See how tight it is. Ooh, money. So look at that. It starts moving almost immediately. There's no real like looseness in the steering there like there was before. It's just input straight down. See on this side? Look at that, wow. So it is tight now. We will see if it stays tight while we go ride right now. We're gonna just go and, take a little rip. We might need to tighten it back down a little bit, cycle it through a little bit, tighten it, cycle it, tighten it again. I'm hoping that isn't the case, but with these type of things, you're supposed to tighten it down, after, say 100 miles or so. Let's go take it for a rip. Okay, so now it's been a few weeks later. We've ridden the four-wheeler a bunch of times since then, and I'm gonna be honest about the review of these tie rods. First of all, right off the bat, I'm just gonna say after I had ridden it for about a week to 2 weeks, one side did loosen up a little bit and we had to tighten it back down. The other side stayed tight, but one side did loosen up just a little bit. It wasn't nearly as bad as the American Star tie rod ends were. After we tightened it down that second time, time. It's remained tight ever since. So I did mention that we might have to cycle through the suspension a little bit when we do the wheelies and ride a bunch, a lot of vibrations and stuff like that. That kind of satisfied that cycling period that I mentioned. So I think that's pretty good. One side just had to be tightened a little bit and it's remained tightened since. Do I think that these Brute Performance tie rod and tie rod ends are worth the $200 price? So first couple of things I want to establish is that they are solid billet aluminum. That gives them a very big strength advantage as well as a weight advantage because they are lightweight, but they're extremely strong due to being that solid billet aluminum and just the machined out threads. You're already starting out with a high quality material and a high quality construction of just the rod itself. And then you move on to the ends, and they are a Heims joint style end, which, you know, those aren't really cheap. A quality Heim joint end isn't very cheap just in and of itself. So you add on 4 of those Heims joints plus hardware, spacers, and all of that. It really starts to begin to make a lot more sense why these are so expensive. So of course time will tell if they last a long time, but right now I'm thinking that the 200 price mark isn't that far off for the quality you get. So after my experience with American Star tie rod ends, I really wanted to try out the highest quality tie rod and tie rod ends I could get, and really these ones might be it, but we will see long term how long they last. All right, that's it for today's video. Go ahead and smash that like button and subscribe for more great content, and we will see you next time.